Every single voice is an important voice. I don't care where you fall in your organization. You could be a seasonal part-time employee. You could be the president. Everyone in between. As long as you have a voice and you have a passion, you can make things happen. And then the next step is to find the other people in your organization who also have that passion.
Hi there, this is Samantha Saxby with another episode of Moms with Benefits, and today I have Loryn Duke, and she is representing Steamboat. Loryn has an incredible story that she is going to share with us. I am so delighted. We met on a Moms First community call a couple weeks ago, and I just was like, I need to share your story, and I'm obviously not the only one. Her story and the Steamboat story has been featured in Fortune Magazine, Colorado Sun, Chalkbee, the radio, and tons of other articles. So here we're going to kind of get a little behind the scenes insight from Loryn on what the story is and how and why it all happened, and hopefully give some listeners some ideas for the change that they're trying to chase. So Loryn, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Samantha. I am thrilled to be here today.
Good. Okay, so I feel like you're going to do it way better than I will. So tell us, what did Steamboat do? What are the highlights? What happened? What are the results?
Sure, yeah. So to take a step back in time, it was the year 2021, and I had just returned from maternity leave, and I had a phenomenal manager on my team who had a 1-year-old at the time, and then we had just added a new team member who had moved to Steamboat for the job, based on the fact that she was able to secure childcare for her twins, who were, I believe, 3 or 4 at the time. And by the time I returned from maternity leave, there was no childcare for any of those 4 children. I couldn't secure it by the time I was ready to return. My amazing manager, her facility, the entire facility had just closed, and the new director, her classroom had closed. So here we are sitting at a precipice where 3 career-driven women who had amazing careers were considering leaving the workplace to be stay-at-home moms because we could not secure childcare. This is a super common story here in Steamboat, Colorado. We're in the northern part of the state. We're considered a rural community, and we, like so many other places, are a childcare desert. And so we knew we had to do something. None of us wanted to leave the workforce. We wanted to stay committed to our company. So we banded together, we lifted up our voices, and we took advantage of a moment in time where it was post-COVID. There was still a lot of empathy at the corporate level, and we found the advocates at our leadership, and we proposed to them that we open an employer-based child care center so that we would never in the future have to worry about losing incredible staff when they chose to expand their families. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of data collection, but we were able to convince our leadership. And then in 18 months, we went from concept to doors open. And now we have a child care facility that has 40 students. I'm getting tingles. It has 40 students. Most of them are employee children at this moment in time because we're so young and fresh. The concept is in the future that it'll be dedicated specifically to employees and staff members of the ski resort. But if there's ever openings, that's where we open it up to the community so that we are aiding the crisis in our community, not just kind of problem solving just for ourselves. And there were a lot of trials and tribulations along the way, but it's an amazing benefit and an amazing resource. There's really cool ROI that we now have against what a critical benefit this is for our staff. And now we feel like our responsibility is, as leaders, business leaders, to share our story so that other businesses understand that this is a reality. This is a absolute necessity, and how we move forward. If we're not going to have federal standards in the U.S. right now, how do businesses step up to fill that gap?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think, there's general support for policy changes, but there's a lot that employers, that organizations, that businesses, that those quote unquote in power at these organizations and leaders can do today. And so that's why we're talking. I don't even know where to begin. Can we talk about the ROI and like getting deeper into that? Like, what are your thoughts? I know there was a Boston Consulting Group study. Like, let's dive into that. What was the ROI, and what's your take on how that ROI was created from a business culture perspective?
Yeah, I am so excited about this ROI study because coming from a for-profit business, even a nonprofit would probably approach this the same way. There is no revenue generating for a child care benefit, period. Any business who invests in childcare needs to understand that the return on investment is not physical dollars. And that's a really hard concept for most people, especially in leadership positions, to understand. And so having an ROI study that can now put some real data behind the investment of recruitment, retention, productivity, satisfaction, that is a game changer in the world, I think. So Steamboat was really fortunate to be able to participate in that study. So we have data specific to Steamboat and then the overall general return on investment data. But the study has astounding figures, up to 425% return on investment. That's irrefutable numbers. Any business would look at that and say, yes, please, I'll raise my hand and I would like 425% return on investment. And the fact that you only have to retain 1% of employees to make this a financial investment that makes sense for your organization, there's no way to say that that's not the right investment for your organization. Here at Steamboat specifically, we're excited because we found that of our working parents, so we've done a lot of studies overall, and that's something we'll get to later on, but specifically for this one, we only interviewed parents who were taking advantage of the benefit. That's how we got our data that's part of the BCG study. And of that, we found 8 out of 10 job satisfaction for working parents utilizing the on-site facility. We also found that 90% of those employees surveyed plan to stay with the company at least for the next year, and 70% had long-term plans now to stay with our company. And the coolest part about that 70% is that many of those people cited that they now see job growth opportunities that they never really saw before because they don't have to worry about family planning. They don't have to worry about finding places for their children. They don't have to worry about those stressors that maybe in the past would have said, hey, there's a job over here that's a higher level and I want to go for it, but I'm not prepared because I don't have the backup family care that I need. Now those barriers are gone and people can see more future growth. And that was really our goal. You know, take a step back to 2021 and even in still today, 2024, we're in a labor shortage in a lot of fields, especially in the hospitality industry, which is where we are. And so how could we retain the amazing employees that we have? And then how could we start to recruit other employees to want to join our company? And this is an untapped market. How do we bring moms who left the workplace back into it? How do we bring parents of either gender back into the workplace that maybe left because of COVID, because they can't afford it, because there's no accessibility, because facilities closed down? So that's what we were really looking to do, was have that recruitment and retention database that we could know that we're going to have great employees into the future. So that 70% of career growth opportunities is a really important number for us. The other one that's really interesting is that we have avoided 13 absentee days. And I love this statistic because what it does is it kind of combats that naysayer of this is a great benefit for parents, but it's not equitable for non-parents. And this stat helps supports that even non-parents, even people not actually physically taking advantage of the benefit, still benefit from it. So if I am a coworker of a parent and I have to make up all the productivity because that parent is out when she can't find childcare, or her childcare is sick, or her childcare closes for a day and she can't find backup care, or she can't come back from maternity leave, so she's taking a longer plan, I now have to backfill for her. So I, as a non-parent, still love this benefit because when my coworker can be more productive because they don't have to worry about childcare, I can be more productive. So it really does take away that inequitable naysaying that happens. So I love that statistic too. This is an anecdotal statistic, but in the last year, we've had 6 new births in our organization, actually just in one department. That's the marketing department at our resort.
Oh, wow.
I think that speaks volumes of people who wanted to have families, were family planning, but hadn't actually pulled the trigger. Just knowing that they have childcare, now they can move forward with that step. And it's exciting to have a baby boom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's a culture you're creating in the post-COVID world. Wow. Okay. So you kind of talked about the origins, 2021, post-COVID. I heard the word empathy. You used the word empathy right off the bat. I feel like I want to get into, you also said it took 18 months kind of from conception to doors open. And so That takes patience. That takes, I'm sure, a ton of conversations. And so, can you break down perhaps what were the key steps in transitioning from concept to doors open throughout that 18 months?
Sure. I really want to focus on the early stages because one of my favorite things to ingrain in anybody who's considering proposing or advocating for childcare benefits is every single voice is an important voice. I don't care where you fall in your organization. You could be a seasonal part-time employee. You could be the president. Everyone in between. As long as you have a voice and you have a passion, you can make things happen. And then the next step is to find the other people in your organization who also have that passion. So we started with the three of us in our little department that were impacted, but we found so many other supporters. Men, women, non-parents, parents, older parents. Their kids had already graduated, but they remembered the struggles that they went through. And so bringing on board all of those different supporters just lends credibility to the need in your organization. So do not be afraid to say, I see a need in our organization and I'm going to pursue it. And then be vocal about it because you won't find the other supporters until you start talking about it. Mm-hmm. So that's my first piece of advice is just be loud, be proud.
And would you say there's strength in numbers?
Absolutely. There's strength in numbers. And I love to say that for two reasons. There's strength in numbers of the number of people you can get to support it. And there's strength in numbers in the sense of data. Data is always going to be your best friend. That's why the ROI study is important. But even without the ROI study, we were able to find data that supported our need. What I love about the early childhood education sector is that there doesn't seem to be any proprietary information. I come from a for-profit business. We like to hold our secrets very close to the fold. We don't want to share any of it. That's not the case in early childhood education. I found that once we started digging deeper and wanting to find information, people were throwing things at us. There are toolkits out there. There's research that they've done in their organization. There's surveys that they already have drafted. And they were like, here, take it, please, be successful, because anybody who's been through this process or has been able to take advantage of these kind of benefits, they understand it goes well beyond their personal self, their own organization. I love it when people say that childcare is not a partisan issue, it's an economic issue. This is something that impacts all of us, and we all are going to win the more childcare benefits there are out there in the world. So I just love how much people want to share information. So the data that exists out there are data from the ROI study. Patagonia has been doing on-site childcare for 30 plus years, and they have amazing toolkits they're willing to share and amazing data. We leaned heavily into them because it's sort of in our industry, it's outdoor rec, and they have a statistic that says they have 100% return rate for working mothers since they opened the Child Care Center. I mean, you can't get a better statistic than 100%.
That is amazing.
Right? And so for us to be able to lean on some data points like that was really helpful in our case, going beyond the have empathy and sympathy for us who are deep in the trenches right now. There's actually real numbers behind it. The other thing that we dove into very lightly, but I push hard now that I'm on the other side, is surveying your staff. Understand what the needs are of your exact people. We went all in on an employer-based on-site childcare center. I am not even here remotely to tell everyone that that is the solution for their organization. What I love about the BCG study and what I love about the advocacy work that we get to do now is meeting different organizations that fall all along the spectrum of the benefits that they offer. Some could be backup care, some could be stipends, some could be, on-site childcare, some could be nanny support, whatever it is. Find out from your people what it is that will help them, because there's nothing worse than creating an amazing benefit and then telling people it's what they want, but then being like, actually not really. For example, when we surveyed our staff, we were leaning towards a stipend. We know our employees, of them, we have about 50 children under the age of 5 in our workforce. So if we gave every parent $1,000 a month stipend, we know exactly how much that would spend per year. That feels good. But when we surveyed our parents, we realized even a $5,000 a month stipend would not help a single one of our parents. There's no space available in our community. So throwing money at the problem was not going to fix it. We knew the only way to actually give a benefit that was meaningful to our staff was to create the space. So you often hear there's 3 issues with childcare. There's affordability, there's accessibility, and then there's high quality. And we had grand dreams of doing all 3 at once. Not really feasible, but you can tackle 2 out of 3 at once. And we realized we needed to create the space. We needed to make it high quality. And we made it as affordable as we could for our workforce. That's where that benefit comes in. You get a discount if you're one of our team members, but then it's a higher price for our community. But it was really interesting to say the need that our staff actually wanted wasn't what we thought it was. So surveying your people is the most important thing you can do. And you survey them pre-concept, through the concept, post-concept. I don't care if your child care center has been open for 20 years, you should still be surveying your people to make sure that as times change, you're still providing the right benefit for them.
Absolutely. And it's reflective of what their feedback is in real time. And so that's just fueling that you're on the right track, or maybe you need to pivot a little bit. And so it also feels like it's fostering the relationship, the communication between top down or, bottom up kind of relationships that organizations are structured by.
Yeah. And that's what's going to be interesting as we move forward and continue to survey our staff, is to see that transition from needing accessibility because we've provided that to when is the real tipping point, the affordability and the cost of it. Right now, our staff is saying, yeah, it's a little bit higher than we want, but that's childcare. We just appreciate the access. There will be a tipping point where they say the access is no longer the critical benefit. It needs to be a much lower price point. And that's when we'll have to shift our business model.
Yeah. And so when you were working through this process, I hear there was 3 of you that really led the initiative. There's surveys. And so every employee that was engaged in those surveys was part of the process too. Who else had a quote unquote seat at the table to try to figure out the solution to the identified problem?
So this is one of my favorite pieces of advice that worked for us is find your advocate at the very, very top. Whether it's the president, the CFO, a vice president, even a director, wherever you can find a very influential advocate, that's a really important voice. And the advocate needs to not just be, yes, I'm going to support your efforts. They need to be invested, passionate, get them on board. You just need one person as close to the top as possible. We were really, really fortunate that we were able to tap into the president at our resort. We were able to lean on his empathy. We were able to lean on his drivers as well. We recognized that our president wanted to leave a legacy at the resort and he hadn't really found his legacy yet. And so we were able to take advantage of that want and desire for him and say, this can be your legacy. You're starting a childcare program. We're going to have it for at least a decade, we know. And so that's one way we got him to be a big advocate for us. Also, just think about who your personal supporters are in the organization. Do you have a boss or a coworker who just loves the work that you do, is a big fan of you as an employee? That way your need is going to resonate more with them. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, for us, there was a meeting where it was the 3 of us who were super passionate and we were sitting in front of all of the leaders. So the CFO, the CMO, the CEO, all the C's, and they were asking tough questions. But we had enough support in the room from the right people that even the tough questions kind of got batted down as this is something we have to do no matter what. And honestly, your HR representative, as high up as you can go, they're probably a really good person to start with because they're the ones who can really lean into some of the data against replacing employees. That's a really good data point as well. There's numbers out there that it's double the salary to replace an employee. So if you have a salary of $50,000 for a manager and that manager has to leave because they can't find childcare, you're going to spend $100,000 to replace that manager. For us, we found we had to subsidize the center. Again, revenue generating, not going to be found in childcare. It's a loss center, and you have to be willing to understand that and find the revenue in other areas or the ROI in other areas. So our organization committed to $200,000 worth of subsidization every year. We did that because when we looked at it, that means we would save 2 employees, we are saving that $200,000 subsidization. To
Okay.
lose 2 employees, we're going to spend $200,000 anyway to replace them. And then those employees probably need childcare anyway. So it's finding some of those data points and seeing how they really fit into the organization. And that's where HR can lend a really valid voice to the conversation. They know how tough it is to recruit. They know how much better it is to retain an employee. And so they can speak to the value of a critical benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so would you say that there's an art, or there's a trial and an error, or there's an evolution of the story you need to tell to be able to get this across the finish line, and that story incorporates advocates as well as the data points to hit in the right way?
Absolutely. And understanding that there's options. We chose to do an on-site employer-based child care center that we run in-house. There are third-party organizations out there that do this on a big national scale. There are local third-party businesses or operators that you can tap into. There's also partnerships you can tap into. One of the things we considered that we didn't move forward with, but is a really good model, is government agencies in your community. Is there a local government that is trying to find more bus drivers for their local community and they can't attract that talent? And maybe you guys can partner together to provide a child care center that's for one business and a second business, so that they can do some recruitment together too. And then as a government entity, they might be able to tap into some more federal dollars or some more grants that you as a for-profit business may not be able to tap into. So consider that there's so many different operating models and ways to move forward with this, that if you hit a roadblock, don't let that be a stop sign. Just consider it a yield sign and keep on moving.
I love that analogy. And so has there been any unexpected roadblocks or yield signs, as you call them, in your 18 months?
Definitely. What I think is cool, like any progression, is being on this side of it. There's a lot of things I probably would have done differently at the onset, but I don't regret any of the process that we went through. I think we very quickly dismissed a third party operator, and maybe we could have spent more time considering that. To really take a rewind and step back to make this conversation make sense, we were super fortunate to work with an organization based in Colorado. It's called EPIC, and it's basically entrepreneurs investing in childcare. And what they did is they created a design lab, and the whole purpose was to find organizations that were thinking about investing in childcare, specifically employer-based facilities, and then give them the roadmap on how to do it. So it was a 6-month lab that we participated in, and every month we learned a new aspect, everything from the financing, grants available, licensing, requirements, everything that you could possibly need. And it was 100% one of the main reasons we were able to successfully open our facility. Find an organization like that in your community. Find the one in Colorado, even if you're not based in Colorado. I highly recommend it. But within that, we were also able to tap into other businesses that were going along the same process that we were. And I was really interested to collaborate with a community hospital out of Grand Junction, Colorado. And their model took a lot longer. They actually built a facility, so naturally it would take longer. But they did decide to partner with a local third party. So not a national Bright Horizons or Childcare, not one of the main ones, but a local operator who had already had her own facility but didn't really have the financial backing to keep going. And so it was a really interesting model that I hadn't considered early on, and I think it's been very successful for them because, for example, we're a ski resort. We don't know anything about operating a child care center. We can teach you to ski, we can teach you how to make, or we can serve you really good food, but we don't know early childhood education. We were fortunate to bring an amazing director on board, but there were a lot of pitfalls for us because we didn't have that historical background on how to be an early childhood education operator. Whereas this community hospital that we did the design lab with, they tapped into that, and I think their early process was a lot smoother because of it. So those are some of the lessons that I wish we had taken a step back. We were trying to move very, very quickly, and we did move very quickly, which was awesome. But I think we missed some opportunities to pause and see what else was out there. Like I said, we worked with Epic. It would have been interesting to see if there were other organizations at the time that could have provided us more toolkits, better surveys. Now, in hindsight, we have a totally different survey that we're giving to our staff. So lots of trips. None of them, again, were stop signs for us. I see it in a totally different light now that I'm on the other side.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I have a background in technology, and there's this concept of minimum viable product. And it's like, how do you get the change or test the concept as quickly as possible to be able to, get something out the door, and then you continue to iterate and improve on it. There's also the concept of, well, you want to do it right as well, and it can't be pushed. And so I think it's super interesting. I think when you're ever looking back on, a big initiative or a big feat that you've had, it's easy to say that, I would have done X, Y, and Z different. But I think the fact that you were able to make the change that you did in 18 months, I feel like you were a pioneer. And to do it that early post-COVID, that just shows creativity, passion, dedication. You, Steamboat, the leaders, it's just an incredible story. And so I hear you when we want to try to do some things different, but you got it across the finish line, and now you're able to, do those things differently. So that's just my take on it.
Well, thank you. And we're incredibly proud. Every single day, my daughter goes to the facility now, and every day that I drop her off, I'm just so proud of what we accomplished. And personally, I'm really proud that, this is not my forte either, childcare, and I'm super passionate about advocating for it now. And I just love that it opened up all these different doors for us in a lot of different ways. And I still think that we're in a unique moment in time where there's a lot of business leaders who are trying to lean into the culture. I've been in my career for 20 plus years, and I don't know that there's ever been a time where culture has been at the forefront as much as it is now. And childcare benefits, supporting working parents, making the workplace more family friendly, that's a real culture builder. And I think any person who works in an organization who wants to leverage this moment in time, the iron is hot to strike.
Totally.
Technology is, but I think take advantage of the empathy that is still circulating right now and make something happen.
Totally. I feel like there's a massive, it's bigger than a trend. There is a massive opportunity for organizations right now to differentiate themselves for retention, for talent. It is a massive opportunity if employers choose to see it like that. And ultimately, that's up to them.
Well, and that's where I think there's a unique ROI that hasn't really been studied yet, which is consumers nowadays, and especially, Gen Z and the younger generations, they're choosing to spend their money with organizations that have the same values as them. And
yes,
more value driven. So an organization like Steamboat, we tried to look at it holistically as well, that this is a huge benefit for our staff. But the reason I'm out here trying to tell everyone our stories, I want our consumers to know that this is what we care about, so that like-minded consumers will spend their money with us. And I think that's a really important thing for businesses to consider as they move forward and the younger generations come up to spend their money. They're going to care about businesses that take care of their working parents. They're going to care about businesses that take care of the environment. And so this is a way that you can make a really good business financial decision for the future of your consumer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. I feel like the writing's on the wall there if you've been paying even half attention. Okay, amazing. So what else can we talk about? Is there more stats that you haven't shared yet that are part of the story?
I don't know that there are more stats. What I will say is I am amazed at how much money is actually out there to support these kind of initiatives that maybe isn't getting the spotlight or the notoriety that people may think. I'm really grateful to live in the state of Colorado because we're very progressive when it comes to early childhood education, and they are putting a lot of grants forward. So we were able as an organization to capitalize on an emerging childcare facility grant that was a match up to $500,000. Without that, I don't know that we would have been able to open our facility because we found an amazing location, but it was previously a physical therapy office. So we had to remodel the entire thing to have little mini toilets and all the things that come with a childcare facility. And so we were super grateful to be able to tap into those kind of grant dollars. And especially as a for-profit business, we didn't really think that there were opportunities out there to tap into grant dollars. There are so many tax credits out there. Once you open a facility, there's a lot of federal and state dollars to support admissions that absolutely go untapped. We are amazed at, in Colorado, we have CCAP, which is the subsidization by the state, and facilities are required to offer CCAP spaces, but we are amazed at how underutilized that is. And so that's something to consider, that if you have a workforce and you're trying to do the numbers on, we're going to open a facility in Steamboat, I'll be very straightforward. It's about $80 a day for childcare, which is ludicrous. As an employee, I get a 20% discount, so that's $68 a day. Great discount, but still crazy expensive for childcare. Mm-hmm. But there are CCAP dollars out there that are being untapped. And so a lot of my coworkers who make $50, $60, $75, $100,000, they didn't think that they qualified for some of this funding, both from the state, from the federal government, and they do. If they think that they're not qualified for it, they're not applying for it. It's going unused. So I think both from the operator side and the parent side, don't give up. If money is a barrier, there are so many resources out there. And again, that's what I love about the unproprietariness, which is a totally made up word in this sector. But I feel like there are businesses, Epic is another great example. They are a business that provides these services for a fee, but they also have a lot of tools and resources that they will give away for free. So don't be deterred by not having the right resources. Don't be deterred by not being able to pay the service fee. Reach out. People want to help, and there is money there to support it, especially for nonprofits. So that's what I think is cool about doing a partnership. As a for-profit, we also consider, do we create a nonprofit foundation within our organization so that we can tap into some nonprofit grants out there? Or could we work with a Mile High United Way or another nonprofit organization so that we are providing more space and accessibility in our community and being able to tap into some of the resources that wouldn't be available as a for-profit business? So there's a lot of things to consider, and be creative about the way you tap into them.
Yeah. Great insight there. And so for the future, 5-10 years, I mean, do you have kind of a vision of the evolution of what you started, or do you see kind of new problems on the horizon, or kind of what's your take on the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, lots of things I want to answer. What I love, and I know that this is, again, a really unique situation, I'm very fortunate, but what I love about my organization is we signed a 10-year lease on our childcare facility. So I have a lot of peace of mind knowing that our childcare facility will operate for at least 10 years. I am really hopeful that, 40 years from now, there are still children attending the Steamboat Child Care Center, because we understand that that's a critical benefit forever and ever and ever. So I definitely have visions of a future where it's still operating and it's double the size. We lease a building, we lease half a building. And from day one, we've all talked about what's the opportunity, at what point do we pursue the other side of the building so that we can double the number of children that we can accommodate. So I definitely have big plans and a hopeful future. What I think is really personally the most rewarding part about this process is this untapped passion that I have for advocating for working parents that I never knew. I've been in the same industry my entire career, 20 plus years, and I've done the same things. It's very hospitality driven. I love what I do. But now, all of a sudden, in the last 2 years, I have this new fire lit under me that I want to support my fellow coworkers, whether they're parents or not, to be the best that they can be. And I see little ways to do that, and I see big ways to do that. And so personally for me, I'm still going to keep fighting the fight for childcare benefits, but now I really want to focus on mental wellness, because I think they're all tied together. There's housing, there's mental wellness, there's childcare. Put all of these into the same little box, and you're going to see it impacts every single worker. So how can we do better for our workforce we spend so much time of our day at work, even if you're not actually at work now that remote work is so common, but we spend so much of our lives dedicated to work. How do we find that true balance, and how do we support each other? And so I'm very grateful personally that opening a childcare facility, advocating for a childcare facility, has just opened new doors of interest for me personally.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. It's clear that your passion is there, the success is there, and I'm with you. There's a fire in me too, and we need some changes, big and small. I like that you included that. So I'm excited to tackle those with you and have some listeners hear your story to hopefully inspire them to tackle them as well. So thank you again so much, Loryn, for joining us and talking all about Steamboat and the incredible things you've done there.
Thank you so much for this podcast and shining a light on it and giving us the opportunity to tell our story. And the only thing I'll close out with is I am here to talk to anyone. I gladly will answer my phone for anyone who wants to ask questions, and I love to network on this topic. So please reach out.
Awesome.
If you are currently expecting or just looking to plan ahead, check out perkyleave.com to learn more about your leave benefits.
Moms with Benefits is chasing financial and emotional stability for motherhood. If you've resonated with any of the stories from our moms, we'd love for you to give us a rating and quick review to help spread the word. You'll also find Moms with Benefits on Instagram @momswithbenefits.org. Keep going and keep growing, Mama.